To start this Thailand-built custom e-mountain bike project, I purchased a Richter Alpha 19-inch frame, 29-inch wheel mountain bike from Lazada. My new bike is never going to be any newer or any cleaner than it is right now for the very first ride. Here we go. Test drive.
It's worked!
Whee, whee.
You so proud? Did you move the seat up or down?
I moved the seat up.
Let's look very sleek, sexy. Awesome.
Needs a little tune-up, but it's good. Very lightweight and smooth.
ลูกคนใหม่ the new child in the family.
Okay, this is the part of the video where I'm going to show you all the details of this custom e-mountain bike made in Thailand. Started out as a very lightweight, higher-end mountain bike made in Thailand that I bought online from Lazada. It's lightweight aluminum with really nice designs and fantastic weld jobs. It's aircraft quality aluminum, 6061 T6 aluminum. So very thin walls, very light frame, and the requirements that I needed for this bike were overall lightweight so that I can ride it like just a regular bicycle and not feel it heavy like a fat bike, fat tire bike, and just for fun and exercise. And then I've got a motor that I can use to get back home if I get overheated here in the tropical weather of Thailand. So let's see some details of this bike. All right, so this is a Bafang BBSO2B, B like Baker, 750 watt, and bought in mid to late 2025, and I think it's just before there. It's been in. This model has been out 10 years, and they're starting to redo them with different model numbers and use CAN bus. So this is the original firmware and control for this motor. And one thing, the first modification I did is, after riding it a little bit, I wished I would have bought a 1000 watt, not a 750 watt motor. And I noticed the firmware doesn't even hardly allow you to get the full 750 watts. So like, you can get 750 watts for a few seconds, and then it might drop. It does this thing called decay, and it goes down to something lower. So I wanted to be able to at least sustain 750 watts and have peak 1000 watts. And after doing a lot of research, I decided to try a trick. Right here, that's the motor controller right here, right? So it comes out, you just take the chain ring off, and then this comes out, and then you have to rewire it. It comes, that's where the wiring harness comes into. So, and then there's wires to connect it to the motor inside. And so I found out that the BBSHD 1000 watt Bafang has the same exact size motor controller except for it has bigger air cooling fins. But the gasket and the backside fit exactly perfectly. So I bought one and swapped it out, and it works exactly how I wanted it to. So now it'll give me 1,000 watts for a few seconds while I'm in the maximum torque RPM, and then it only drops off to about 750 watts. And of course, when you're just cruising along and not accelerating and in a good gear, the bike will cruise down the road with 200 watts, no problem. So we've got that as the first modification. So the next thing that I added is this chain ring. My Bafang came, my 750 watt BBS02B came with a 46 tooth chain ring and a plastic chain guard. So I decided that I wanted just a little bit lower gear ratio, so I bought this aftermarket chain ring and installed it, and it comes with this nice, one piece with the chain guard built in. It's beautiful. 6061 aluminum once again, and CNC made, very precision, and the gear ratio seemed really good for me. Another option that I added were just bigger pedals for big feet. And then right down here, this is like a center stand, kickstand, and it comes, when it flips down, the legs spread open, and then when you flip it up, the legs get narrower. So it's got kind of a cool hinge design, and it works fantastically. And I think it helps the bike be stable when you got a heavy battery. You don't want it just a side stand and it leaning over. It could be bumped, it could fall over. All right. So next, while we're here, the battery is 48 volts. I decided to get a cheaper Chinese battery, so it's only 48 volts, but it is 30 amps. So the battery is one of those mostly seen Chinese HL battery or Hailong, and it came pre-made, and it has the standard little lock and mount that it slides onto the mount, and with a little key to lock it on there. And I did add an external fuse right here in line, so in case my main power wire to the motor shorts out, I put a 30 amp fuse there. And my motor controller, I have it limited to 25 amps right now, and at 48 volts that can give you more than 1,000 watts if the controller asks for it. But if you have stock firmware, the controller is not going to ask for more than 1,000 watts. It limits it. Even when you go in with a laptop and work on the settings, that's the max you're going to get. I wanted the wires not to be kind of bunched up and folded up like I see a lot of people do. So what I did was I brought them up. There's the harness is right here, and it just comes up through the bike. And I got the control harness from the motor controller, comes up. It's only about 18 inches long, and I just put this little plastic PVC pipe container that I made so that the wires would just come right up. Anything that from the motor that wasn't long enough instead of just wrapping it up like some people do and just bunch it up and put it underneath the motor, there's nothing there. It's just a loom comes up and goes right up and comes out. So the control wire just comes up, plugs into the harness control wire, and goes down and kind of hides behind the battery, and just comes up and goes to the cockpit area right here where the 4 connectors are, and then spreads out. Very clean with loom and for the brakes, the throttle, and the controller. Now we're back looking at the left side of the bike. Flipped it around. Here's the Bafang. The Bafang model that I got is for the 68 millimeter wide lower bracket frame tube, and my bike measured exactly 68 millimeters, so that worked out good, and it enabled me to get this torque bracket that bolts from the Bafang to the center lower bracket, like I would call it an axle. It goes flush with the frame just the way it's supposed to, and it lines up really well flush with no spacers where it attaches to the motor. And also I used larger head instead of cap screws, bolts to fasten it on there. And both of these lock nut rings are seated just perfectly with just the right amount, a couple threads left over. So I'm really happy with that. This baby is, as it's so sturdy on here, it's as if it's welded to the frame. When you put the proper torque and you get both of these lock nuts on there, you're not going to have any looseness problems like people keep talking about. Use a different bracket that kind of has a longer arm that like clamps to the riser tube or the chain stay tube. If I had one, I might have used it, but this is so strong, I'm just going to go with that for now. So anyway, let's see. This battery has just an off-on switch and a port to charge it, and then this just slips out of the way and you can charge it. And then I added this external fuse, and my water bottle bolts were down here, not up here or not in the middle. So I basically had to turn the battery around because this mounting bracket only had bolts at one end. So it worked out good. So I just, I think a lot of people would have this at the top, but it doesn't really make a difference. And so I've got 2 bolts on the frame, and then I put a tie wrap through the top of the mounting bracket here, and then I just put one Velcro strap there for good measure so that it doesn't like wiggle too much when you're going over bumps and you're on the road going fast. Another thing while we're riding here is the Bafang. Since you have a chain ring on the opposite side, on the right side, the drive side, and it came with 2 straight levers, crank arms. You would have the left crank arm would be closer to the frame, almost touching the chain stay, and the right crank arm would be out like 5 centimeters as it passes by. And so it made your left leg closer to the center of gravity, and I didn't like that. So I was able to buy an offset crank arm online for pretty cheap that comes out, and it's a Bafang part, and it matches the other one. So now my legs and my pedals and my feet are more, both right and left are centered. So my control wires came out on this to the right side of my riser tube, and then this is the battery main power coming out on the left side of the riser tube, right up, hiding there, and going into the top of the battery. So clean, no loops. And then the only other wire that we have is this sensor wire for the speedometer. That the sensor's right here, and then here's the magnet on the spokes. The cool thing about this center stand is when it's just parked there, you can turn the back wheel and work on it, or clean it, and then if you had to, you can rock the bike back and the front wheel comes off the ground, just like one on a motorcycle. That was all the motor stuff, mostly, and battery and wiring. Now, we're going to take a look at the drivetrain. This is where the cost of the bike doubled because I did something, you know, high end, I guess. You can see I only have one chain ring gear on the back of the bike. And what looks like a red derailleur is not a derailleur. It's just a chain tensioner that's set to one adjustment for one chain ring. It lines up the chain, and all it does is keep the chain tight. It's a chain tensioner. So what you need in order to do this is a hub with internal gears. So I have a Shimano rear hub, and it's a Alfine Nexus internal 8-speed Shimano hub, and I love it. 8 speeds is just the right amount of gears for an e-bike like this. Here's a different angle looking at the hub. You can see it says internal 8 on it, and the chain ring, or the chain line, is perfect. It doesn't bend, and you can use a heavier gauge single speed chain if you want, but I put a Shimano 12 speed, whatever, 8 speed chain on here just so it's Shimano parts with Shimano chain, and works great. And it shifts. Here's the shifter, and a really cool thing about it is I can change these rear cogs as well. This is a 20 tooth, and if I wanted a little more lower gear, I ordered a 22 tooth. It's very easy to change these gears as well. Another great feature about the internal gear hub is you can change gears while it's parked without turning the pedals like you have to with a normal derailleur. You have to pedal a little bit and roll in order for the chain to jump up to different chain rings, but not with this bike. If you're in 5th gear and you pull up to a stop sign, you can just click it down to 1st gear and it's ready to go. So while we're back here, of course, now if you have a custom hub, you're going to have a wheel built for it, and so I knew I was going to have to rewire, you know, rebuild my rear wheel to hold this hub, and I ended up calling all kinds of bicycle places, and nobody can, you know, builds wheels, really, not very many of them. But I found one in Bangkok called Greenhorn bicycle project, and a lady, Pun, who owns it, who sort of specializes in building custom wheels. So the price sounded good, and I had her build this wheel. I brought my hub down to the shop, and she ordered a custom rim, and they're European made. They were from a company that was making them in 1908. And it's slightly wider. It could be used on a cargo bike, and it's called Andra 40 Ride. That's the model of this wheel. And I told her I wanted heavy duty spokes, and she probably already would have made it that way, but the spokes are 1 gauge slightly thicker, and they're double butted, which means where they hook to the bike, they they taper up. You can see it's a little fatter right there, where it makes the starting where my finger is. It's a 1 gauge thicker. So it's thicker here, and where the threads are at the end of the spoke, they're thicker there as well. All right, now we're at the left side of the bike again. Just finishing up on the drivetrain details. Since I had to get a rear Shimano hub, and then I change the disc brake, it came with a Shimano disc, and it also has Shimano components, so the hydraulic calipers are Shimano. And then I didn't want some other brand on the front, so I had Pun at Greenhorn Bicycle Project build me a front wheel. That's where I realized it was one of those projects where you were going crazy and you just keep spending money on it, but I didn't care because it's, one bicycle. It'll last me some years. So I bought a Shimano front hub with the same called center lock disc to match the back. And it's a technology that is robust, and I love it. So it also, the bike came with the Shimano hydraulic brake calipers. So we're Shimano on most of the important stuff. And just noting that the bike comes with a rock shock, and it's a hardtail. Unless you're doing serious mountain bike racing, you don't need rear suspension. It just adds weight, and it actually doesn't really help unless you're going over some really crazy jumps and stuff. So that's the drivetrain, and now we're going to take a look at the cockpit and the motor controls. This is the 8-speed Shimano shifter. It's like a half twist grip. That was first gear, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seven, eight. And when I flick that, you can see back here on the bike, see that shifter moving? Looks kind of dark down there. So my cadence about 75 revolutions a minute, and it's very comfortable, just like you're hardly working in fourth gear. If it's flat level and no wind, no hill, in fourth gear with a real easy cadence, pedaling cadence of 75-ish, I'm going 15 to 20 kilometers per hour, and that's how I like it. If I did run into a hill, which I don't here because we're near the sea, and it's a river delta. When I ride down the river, there's almost no grades at all. But sometimes I get a real headwind, and instead of fourth gear, the headwind forced me to go down to third gear, and then even second gear and third gear, And so I felt like I wasn't going fast enough. I was having a real hard time keeping up 15 kilometers per hour. So then I touched my throttle, my motor control to level 3, which gives me about 15% power assist. And then it's a very natural feeling. It just, all of a sudden it slowly ramps up and it's giving you 15% power. And I was able to put it back in 4th gear and back to my 15 to 20 kilometer per hour cruise at still 75 revolutions per minute cadence. So basically, when I'll use this motor with the throttle to get out of the way, get across the highway, or run away from a dog that's chasing me, or just have some fun at the end of my ride and blast away, get some speed and some breeze. Or if I'm going against a big headwind, which is really enjoyable here because it cools you down really well, then a couple times I've used it on pedal assist mode 3 to make it just like there was no headwind. Okay, going through the gears with the motor. So normally I'd be riding in 0 pedal assist mode. Now I'm going to turn it on to 1 where the throttle is going to be active now. This is 1st gear. You can see how fast 1st gear would be 23 kilometers per hour. 2nd gear, 28 kilometers per hour. 3rd gear, 33. 4th gear, 37. 5th gear, 44. 6th gear, 53. Oh. The tire was rubbing the tripod, the camera tripod. 7th gear, 62. 8th gear, 70 kilometers per hour. Now you can see I can just go back down to 1st gear, doesn't matter. Use the brake to slow that wheel down. So that's how it works. Now, when the tire's in free air and there's no load on the motor whatsoever, it didn't use any amps. You know, it was like 5-10 amps to get it up to that speed. What creates amps, like these are 1,000 watt in watts. Watts is power, similar to amps. Amps times volts gives you the watts, but the volts always stay the same, and the amps go up the more you use the motor, the more load you put on the motor. So yesterday I got it up for the first time since I upgraded the motor controller to the 1,000 watt. I got it up to 1,000 watts, and it'll only give you 1,000 watts in the range. Well, it gives you the most torque and power in the cadence 80 revolutions per minute of the pedal. That's the cadence to 100. 80 to 100 RPM cadence is where you can get the most power. So I ended up shifting, like in 1st gear, I can only get max power for 2 seconds, and then it's already, the revolutions are up there, and then the Bafang firmware lowers the throttle basically by lowering the amperage. So like, it'd almost be better for me to, if I'm trying to drag race, maybe starting in 2nd gear will give me more than 2 seconds. Maybe it'll be like 3 seconds of full power. So then but like when I'm up in 3rd and 4th gear and 5th gear, it really pulls, gives you a lot of torque, and it hangs in there for a while. I hope this didn't bore you to death. The next phase is to take it for a ride with the GoPro on the loop and check it out a little bit. Thanks.